We are back, and I will certainly take this lovely female companion, smart, intelligent, athletic, and in the know, James Pledger, and I used a group that we love, Beastie Boys. So without further ado, she's everywhere, and number one in our hearts and programs, Stephania Bell. Stephania, welcome back to Laying Down the Law.
Well, thank you for having me. How are you guys?
We're well. We're a little more rested than you. You've been traveling the countrysides here and there, and apologies I did not get an opportunity to see my schoolmate down in Houston, Texas. However, you did get a chance to visit the Texans training camp, and I guess whatever you told them worked.
Yes, I'm going to take all the credit for that.
Absolutely. They said, you told them you're not coming back. Hey, if y'all don't win the game against...
Well, Stephania gets back down there. Arian Foster.
I'm sorry?
You get down there. Arian Foster, Lewis Nix III, and Andre Johnson all come off the injury list, as well as Brian Cushing. So whatever you did had to have some kind of effect.
Yeah, they start running around real
I don't
quick.
know about that. We didn't get to see them in the game, but they're out doing work, and I still am confident that both of them are going to be ready to go by week 1.
Yeah, an offensive touchdown, a defensive touchdown, a special teams touchdown. They were just showing out for you, Stephania.
Yeah, they were.
Well, I did have a little word with Jadeveon Clowney, so I'm sure that motivated him to have that performance last night.
He said, will you follow me on Twitter? I do really well in the game. Well, how are the Texans? I mean, they are definitely a team here within the Republic, as we say, that we watch, AFC South. And what were your thoughts as you visited Houston?
Well, as you know, I'm always checking on the guys who are coming off of big injuries, and a lot of it with an angle to fantasy football. So Arian Foster, probably the number one question mark for most folks in that regard, because he's coming off back surgery, and people just aren't accustomed to dealing with players, especially running backs, coming off back surgery. But by all accounts, he's a little bit lighter than he was coming into last season. He's in fantastic shape. Not pushing it in practice, and we know that he was out of practice for a little bit, but I never got the impression that was a serious worry. And I would like to point out to folks that the key elements that happen after disc surgery happen early. It's a lot of the little things, training the small muscles that help stabilize the spine. That's all early. And then everything you do after that is superimposing bigger movements on top of it. You get into your higher level conditioning, running, then you start football movements, and then you ultimately get to game playing. And I'm sure that they don't want him doing too much before the season starts, but I would suggest that he will be absolutely 100% ready to go by week 1.
ESPN injury expert Stephania Bell joining us here on Laying Down the Law. Stephania, one of the biggest questions that still has not come off the injury list for the Houston Texans is guard Brandon Brooks, who's supposed to be the starter over there on the right side and just help solidify that line. And we know how thin they are along that offensive line. And the Texans have kind of become patriotish in the way that they've gone about their injuries and not having disclosure on anything. Do we know anything other than it's just a back, and do we have any kind of timetable for Brandon Brooks?
No, and you're not going to get a timetable. I mean, Bill O'Brien is bringing the Patriot way to Houston, and you're absolutely right about that. When Gary Kubiak was there, it was really nice for people like me because we always got really straightforward information, and we had a good idea about how long they thought guys were going to be out, and without giving the farm away. I mean, they just gave us basic information. Now it's really what you're able to obtain by either seeing them in practice or not. You're really not getting much information. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, because when they're away from the team, you're not getting much. I mean, we were just talking a moment ago about Andre Johnson, too, who I think by and large is healthy. They'll throw out hamstring, but you're not getting the impression that it's anything serious. So we did not get any real significant information there. And really, for me, it's by watching the guys and seeing what they're doing out on the field. And at least I could see that Arian Foster was out there taking some reps to the team, as was Andre Johnson. So that's why I'm able to have confidence in them based on how I saw them moving when I was down there.
We're talking with Stephania Bell from ESPN. And, you do the fantasy football. We are very appreciative that you're part of the Laying Down the Law Fantasy Football League here as well. Anybody that you think may need to, just general programming notes, because I know we compete and we don't want to give away too much, that, on a kind of just a general level, maybe be wary of, because, Cecil Shorts, I mean, you got some guys that
the Texans let John Bratton out of the bag last week, right. So kind of introduced him to the world. He was that under the radar flyer guy.
Yeah, and some other guys that you've done your special a couple times now with regards to fantasy. We enjoy it. Any general notes, though, you want to put out there for the fantasy football lovers?
Well, I think when you ask about who to be aware of, you sort of hit the nail on the head with the example of Cecil Shorts. I mean, the guys who have soft tissue injuries that are repetitive are the big red flags. And I really like Cecil Shorts. I had him on my fantasy team in one of my leagues last year. I mean, he's got a lot of talent, but you're probably going to have to spend some time without him. And so you have to be careful where you value him in a draft. And as you probably know, he injured a hamstring on the first day of training camp, the very first day, and really has been out of commission for the bulk of training camp. Steven Jackson, who I just saw when I was down there at Texans camp because they were having joint practices with the Falcons, also dealing with a hamstring injury, still not practicing with the team. Again, a lot of talent, incredible work ethic, really like him as a player, but hard to trust in fantasy where you see a guy like him who's 31, I believe now.
I'd kill to be 31. Can you make me 30 anything? Can I 30 anything, Stephania?
Look, every time I talk about age, I feel like saying, in running back years, kind of like dog years. It's not really fair, right? When is the last time we talk about 29 or 31-year-old being old? In terms of wear and tear in football and soft tissue injuries, it is older, and he's dealt with multiple soft tissue injuries. So again, when a guy comes out in the very beginning has issues, it doesn't set you up for a whole lot of confidence for the rest of the season.
No, it doesn't. And we look forward to having your participation again in our league. James.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I expect to make the playoffs and win.
Absolutely. Stephania, we flip up north a little bit, up in Dallas. Tony Romo, coming off that back surgery last night, goes out, looks very solid in his return to action for the first time since, I believe, week 16 of last year after undergoing the surgery on, I believe it was a herniated disc in his back.
Right.
What kind of injury is this, and should you be wary of him going forward, not only just fantasy-wise, but Dallas Cowboy fan-wise?
No, he had the same procedure Arian Foster did, and also to address a herniated disc in his back. And I always thought that the hype on what Tony Romo wasn't doing in camp was overhype. I was never really that concerned about him. I felt like it was a little bit of vindication watching him last night because he did exactly what I expected. And he looks like a guy who's getting his first preseason action. A little bit rusty. There was a little difficulty with a handoff exchange there. It turned into a fumble. He almost made a tackle and then thought the better of it. But ultimately, looked pretty good moving around. Had a nice deep ball to Des Bryant. And really, I thought looked maybe even a little bit better than you would have expected given his limited activity in training camp thus far. But really, from my perspective, he was doing everything that he was supposed to be doing. The Cowboys have constructed a plan for him, and they haven't deviated from that. And I give them a lot of credit. Despite all the outside pressure of, is Tony Romo really okay, or what are they hiding because of his back? No, it's just a very stepwise progression. And some people were saying, well, he didn't take a big hit last night. Okay, sure, we'd like to see that, and we'd like to see him get back up. But I don't think that's the hardest thing on his back. I think some of the hardest things are making the deep passes moving nimbly around in the pocket. And as I tweeted last night, let's just see how he feels today. That's ultimately the biggest test, the day afterward, after doing some of those things for the first time. But I am not particularly concerned about Tony Romo, other than making sure during the season that he gets adequate protection so he doesn't take multiple hits, just for his general health overall, not specific to the back.
There it is. Well, Stephania, I know you're continuing to move about the countryside.
I am at the airport in Chicago as we speak. Just got here. Heading back to Connecticut shortly. So.
Well, listen, how can folks follow you during the week and just throughout the season? And I know you're on Twitter and you give a lot of good information.
Right. Well, please follow me on Twitter, Stephania_ESPN. I have my blog postings, which will continue to increase once we get into the meat of the season. Next week, we're actually doing a live Fantasy Football Now show from Disney World in Orlando. That'll be on Saturday. I believe it's 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll post more about that during the week. And, this is a crunch time, fantasy football drafters, so stay tuned to us on ESPN.com.
Absolutely. We certainly appreciate having you in the league. You've always been a great schoolmate and friend, and come back to Texas again soon. And, we love showing you around, so it's a lot of fun for us, too.
I do love visiting Texas. Send me that draft information soon.
Okay.
I want to get ready to win the league.
All right. You and Julie, what I'd love to see is you and Julie Bueller in a championship. That would be colossal.
Hey.
East Coast, West Coast. Yeah, poor James and I and Jeff and everybody sitting there on the sidelines.
I'm going to have something to say about this before it's all said and done.
Yeah, James is back in. I convinced him. So it didn't take much. But listen, travel safe. Appreciate it. I'm sure we'll talk offline. And, look forward to your insight. And next Saturday morning, catch Stephania talking fantasy football, amongst other things.
Fantasy Football Now.
All right, buckle up and travel safe. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right. We're going to take a sidebar. We have 2 more segments. We'll take your phone calls. Pearland, Texas, taking on Moni Davis in Little League.
Moni.
Yeah, that's going to be love this time of year. So stay with us right here on Laying Down the Law.